The wildest outbursts in court. This is Michelle Blair, a mother aged 35, who committed a heinous crime in Detroit, Michigan, by taking the lives of two of her children and storing their bodies in a freezer for close to 3 years. But what exactly did freezer mom, Michelle, do?
By assault, I punched her. I have put a bag over her head till she lost consciousness. I threw hot water on her, scalding hot water from the faucet.
Did you hit her in the head with the
Yes, I hit her on her head multiple times, over and over.
Was that shortly before she died?
That was actually days before she died and the day she died.
Okay.
Yes. She was standing in the bathtub. I was throwing hot water on her. My son was standing to my right outside the bathroom door, and he was telling me everything he was telling me. I looked at her and I'm like, "You did this?" And she was like, "Yes." So I actually had a stick and I was hitting her in the head. Every time he told me something, I hit her very hard in her head, and I was throwing hot water on her.
We can and we will do it without you.
I never tried to say I didn't. I did it, but that does not negate the fact that they were never there for their children. I had to struggle with them all the time. They were never there.
You get
Steven,
your
you
chance.
know we had to beg you. Me, Steven, all of us is a craft for you.
You're not going to be able to
I'm
stay
good.
by.
Come here.
There are rules.
The discovery of this tragedy was made when she was forced to vacate her apartment, which she shared with her children, due to her failure to pay rent. Michelle was ultimately handed a life sentence for her heinous crimes. But not before unleashing some final blows at the fathers of the two children she violently killed.
They haven't seen them how long? Since 2006. Alexander Dorsey went from 2008, 9, and 10 without seeing his daughters.
The following case centers around Michael Madison, who has been indicted for the brutal murder and mutilation of 3 young women. In a surprising turn of events, it is not the defendant who elicits a heated response, but rather the father of one of Madison's victims, Van Terry. During his victim impact statement, Terry unleashes a fit of rage, leading to chaos in the courtroom. Despite his outburst, Terry is not held accountable. Madison, however, is sentenced to life imprisonment for his heinous crimes and is currently being held on death row. In a news interview subsequent to the event, when asked why he lunges at the attacker of his beloved daughter, Terry recalls precisely what was going through his mind.
So how far from him were you?
And he hit me with that grin. I lost my mind.
He grinned at you.
Yes, he did.
And so the man who murdered your daughter dares to grin at you, and then you snapped, you leapt. What did you hope to do?
Actually, I wanted to break his jaw, get that grin off his face.
This next case went viral due to the intensity of the responses from both the defendant and her mother. 18-year-old Key, Andrea Cook, had set up an attempted robbery via a dating app which resulted in a teenager being shot. She's being held for charges of multiple carjacking events, including carjacking with a deadly weapon and felony battery. Cook was originally facing charges of conspiracy which carried the potential for a life sentence. However, these charges were dropped after she entered into a plea agreement. However, even with life imprisonment off the cards, Cook and her mother still did not expect what was coming next. Cook and her mother had expected that the plea deal would lead to no jail time, which explains their shock upon receiving a 20-year sentence.
Go ahead and adjudicate you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison. Concurrent as to the first 2 counts.
The crying you hear is coming from Cook's mother. The sentence much more severe than they expected.
3 charges.
However, 10 months later, Judge Foxman provided Cook with another opportunity for a plea agreement due to a miscommunication between her defense attorney and herself regarding the prison sentence. This new deal resulted in a reduced sentence of 11 years in prison.
As a result of that new deal,
I think you got good in you, and I think you got potential. Don't lose sight of that.
Cook's sentence is reduced to 11 years in prison.
Next up is a chaotic court case which involves a judge who faces a confrontational defendant. Melissa Hardwick appears in court for divorce proceedings initiated by her ex-husband, who seeks a domestic violence order. However, Hardwick vehemently objects to this request. As a result, Judge Edwards holds Hardwick in contempt of court and sentences her to a 10-day jail term.
Tell me briefly, in your own words, what happened to cause you to ask for a domestic violence order.
Hardwick's ex was explaining the situation when Hardwick interrupted.
Nothing to do with Ms. Hardwick. No. You will be held in contempt of this court if you become disruptive. I haven't done anything.
In a matter of seconds, Hardwick erupts into a heated outburst directed towards Judge Edwards. However, her outburst is swiftly quelled as county court security officers swiftly tackle her to the ground.
Go now.
It takes the effort of 3 officers to successfully apprehend and detain this volatile individual.
So Ms. Hardwick decides to make her matters worse by threatening a judge.
Little does she know that such acts can lead to an entirely separate sentence altogether, which could lead to prison time. Hardwick receives 120 days in jail for contempt of court. But that's not all, she is also charged with resisting arrest, intimidating a judge, and threats of terrorism. However, instead of being incarcerated, Hardwick is given a 5-year probation period along with mandatory evaluations for her mental health and required attendance in anger management courses. Unsurprisingly, her ex-husband also receives an emergency protective order against his ex-wife. Now we're off to Springfield, Ohio, where known career criminal Ricky Hand is on trial for a staggering 30 charges related to business break-in while carrying a gun. But he is none too impressed with his 40-year sentence, and he isn't afraid to show it.
You just gave me 40 years, sir. Yes. You just gave me 40 years. Well, guess what? Sir, what's this?
While being issued with his sentence, he interrupts the judge asking if he was just given 40 years. Hand is clearly not impressed, and he reaches into his sling and aggressively starts pulling cloth out. Inside the cloth is a bottle out, and Hand proceeds to fling the contents of this bottle, before being tackled by several security officers.
For the worst.
You just gave me 40 years. Well, guess what?
Look closely. Hand reaches into his arm sling and pulls out some cloth that was hiding a small bottle filled with, ready for this? His own feces and urine.
But that's not even the shocking part. Hand had bottled his own urine and feces and managed to hide it inside cloth in his arm sling. He manages to hit his defense lawyer along with 4 deputies with the contents in the process. Hand now lands himself in even more trouble. For that stunt, he gets indicted with obstructing official business, retaliation, and harassment with bodily fluids. If you enjoyed this video, then please show your support for this channel by liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment with your thoughts on this video.